What's up, guys? Welcome back. Happy Mother's Day. This very special day calls for a very special recipe. So today I'll be showing you how to make these short rib lasagna roll-ups. But before we do that, please take a quick second to subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit that bell to enable notifications as well. All right, my friends, first things first, we're gonna get the party started with our prep work, which begins with the mirepoix, which is onions, carrots, and celery. We're gonna go ahead and peel the carrots and cut them into bite-sized pieces. There's really no right or wrong way to do this when you're prepping the veggies because we're gonna blend all of this together in our sauce a little bit later, so go ahead and chop them however you feel. Once the carrots are prepped, we're going to move on to the celery, chop them into the same size pieces as the carrots, and then we're going to repeat the same steps with the onion as well, and that is what the fancy folks would call a mirepoix. So we're going to set those veggies aside and take a look at our fresh herbs. Today we'll be using some rosemary, thyme, and bay leaves. And now for the star of the show, take a look at these beautiful short ribs we got from the butcher. I'm going to season these thoroughly with some kosher salt. That's the only seasoning I'm going to add right now because we're going to pop these in the fridge and let them dry brine for a couple hours to allow that salt to really penetrate the meat. We're also going to sear these at a very high temperature, and if you add too many herbs and spices, those have a tendency to burn at high heat. So we're gonna hit them with some salt and add our seasonings after the sear. As you can see here, my friends, we have the cast iron skillet nice and hot. I've added a little avocado oil, and now we're gonna sear our short ribs. You wanna do this in batches, that way you don't overcrowd the skillet and reduce the temperature in the skillet because you want it nice and hot so you can get a beautiful crust. That sear is super important, guys. It adds flavor, it adds texture, and it makes it more visually appealing. So even if you're using the Instapot or the pressure cooker like I am today, make sure you take the time to sear your short ribs on all sides and then set them aside. Once you do that, we're gonna go ahead and add our mirepoix to the same skillet. Right before you add the veggies, make sure that you reduce the heat in the skillet. You don't wanna add them when it's too hot because they'll scorch, and we don't want any burnt veggies in our sauce. So just go ahead and cook them nice and slow. We're gonna start to season here. I'm going in with my AP seasoning and a little extra salt. If you don't have my AP seasoning, you can grab that via the link in the description box, or just use a salt, pepper, garlic, and onion powder blend or whatever you like. Go ahead and work that in. Make sure those veggies are getting nice and tender. And now we're going in with 1 tablespoon each of tomato paste and some Dijon mustard. Give that a good mix. Quick reminder, guys, that all the specific measurements and ingredients for this recipe can be found in the description box below, so don't forget to check that out. Now we're gonna deglaze the skillet with a dry red wine. If you don't wanna use any alcohol in your cooking, you can skip the wine and just use some beef stock. But for the rest of us alcoholics, we're gonna deglaze with some wine and pour ourselves a glass as well. Hey, it's Mother's Day, why not? We're also gonna add some Better Than Bouillon beef base. This is reduced sodium. You can find this product in most grocery stores in the chicken broth aisle. It adds a lot of concentrated flavor. I highly recommend it. Next, we're going in with our beef broth or beef stock. Increase the heat and bring that to a boil. Make sure you use your rubber spatula, scrape the bottom and the sides to ensure nothing's sticking and burning. And at this point, we have a fantastic, flavorful braising liquid that we're gonna add to our Instapot or pressure cooker. So we've already added the liquid. Now we're going in with some crushed tomatoes since we're making a lasagna. If you were just making short ribs, you could leave the crushed tomatoes out of the mix. But essentially, we're making like a short rib ragu that we're gonna add to our lasagna. So mix in those crushed tomatoes, taste as you go and adjust the flavor to your preference. We're gonna go ahead and season this with some Italian seasoning. Next, we're going in with about 4 or 5 cloves of garlic, followed by the herbs that we saw earlier, the rosemary, thyme, and bay leaves. And at this point, my friends, we have an entire flavor party going on in this pressure cooker. We're now gonna add the short ribs back to the party and then get this thing ready to go. As you can see, I'm using an Instapot or a pressure cooker today, but this can also be done in a Dutch oven. I have a recipe for that on the channel as well. The pressure cooker just reduces the overall cook time, makes this go a lot faster. These cooked in about 45 minutes versus in the oven, it would have took at least 3 hours. So while we let the Instapot do its thing, we're gonna go ahead and get our ricotta cheese mixture started. So in a medium mixing bowl, we're gonna add ricotta cheese plus some sour cream, 1 tablespoon of garlic paste plus some Italian seasoning and some all-purpose seasoning, or you can just use a little salt and pepper. Just make sure you taste as you go and adjust the flavor to your preference before you add the eggs. We're also going in some red pepper flakes just to add a little bit of heat, totally optional, a little parsley for some fresh herb flavor and a pop of color, and some freshly grated Pecorino Romano cheese or some Parmesan. I'm also gonna grate some lemon zest in here. You're not gonna get as much acid from the lemon since we're not using the juice, but that nice pop of citrus that you get from the lemon zest really cut through some of the richness that we have in this recipe. So just trust me on that one, I wouldn't steer you wrong. Once you have your mixture right where you want it, you wanna give it one final taste test to make sure the flavors are spot on before you add in your egg. Once you add in that raw egg, you don't wanna taste it anymore at that point until it's cooked. There we go, we're just gonna mix that thoroughly until everything is evenly distributed like you see right here. And then we're gonna set that aside until we need it for our lasagna. Now, my friends, we're gonna make what's called a Mornay sauce, which is basically just a white sauce. It starts with a roux. We're gonna melt some butter, and then we're gonna add our all-purpose flour. We're gonna mix that around and allow that raw flour taste to cook off, which takes about 2 or 3 minutes, so just be patient with it. Once you see it start to foam up, you know you're good to go, and then we're gonna add in our whole milk, or half and half. Again, guys, all the specific measurements and ingredients are provided for you in the description box below, so don't forget to check that out. You're gonna bring that up to a simmer gently, hit that with the whisk, make sure it's nice and smooth, smoother than a 3-day weekend. As you can see, it's starting to thicken up after a couple minutes. Once you start to notice that the sauce is thickening up, it's time to add in some cheese. Today, I'm going with gruyere cheese, which is very traditional for this type of sauce. We're also gonna add some grated Parmesan cheese. We have our heat on low. You wanna stir constantly and allow that residual heat in the pan to melt the cheese. Once the cheese is melted nicely, we're gonna start seasoning. I'm going in with just a pinch of nutmeg and some all-purpose seasoning. We're also gonna grate some truffle in here because we got our tax returns. Just kidding, guys. I actually had a Mornay sauce with truffle up in DC when I was out to eat one day, and that was the inspiration behind this recipe. So we're gonna give that a good mix, make sure everything's coming together nicely. Make sure you taste as you go and adjust the flavor to your preference. If you need a little bit more salt, you could always add it. If at any time it gets too thick, you could always thin it out with a little bit more milk. We're gonna set that aside until we need it later and check on our short ribs that look like they are absolutely falling apart, nice and tender. Oh man, look at that. This is gonna be good, my friends. Perfect for Mother's Day or any holiday. Really, I'd make this any day of the week if you're feeling fancy. I'm gonna break out the hand blender here just because it's nice and easy, but you could put this in any blender you want or a food processor. We just want that sauce to be nice and smooth. We're gonna add in some heavy cream here, and now you can see that the Ragu sauce is coming together beautifully. Oh man, now it's time for the fun part. We're gonna go ahead and shred these short ribs. Look how tender these short ribs are. Oh man, you could do it with 2 forks, or if it's cool enough, you could just do it with your hands. Shreds apart super easy, nice and tender, just the way you want it for this recipe. Try not to eat it all before you get it into your sauce. That's how we're looking once we shred all the short rib. We're gonna add that to our sauce. Before you add the short rib to the sauce though, guys, make sure you set some aside for our plating. I'll show you that here in a minute. Now, my friends, we're gonna roll out our lasagna noodles. We're gonna hit it with that ricotta cheese mixture first and foremost, and then we're going down with that sauce with the short ribs. Then you wanna roll it up nice and tight. Oh man, tons of flavor in this recipe, guys. I can't wait for you guys to give this one a try. Let me know in the comments what you think. Let me know what other recipes you wanna see. If you wanna see some more Instapot recipes, let me know. Now it's time to put your rolling skills to the test. You're gonna roll them nice and tight. There we go. You want to squeeze as you go. Try not to squeeze out all the filling though. There we go. We're doing a pretty good job right here. Roll them up, and then we're going to place them in a casserole dish. That casserole dish needs to have a thin layer of sauce at the bottom. And just repeat that process for all of your lasagna roll-ups. And then we're going to top it with a little bit more sauce, because why the hell not? Look at that. This is way easier than regular lasagna. Just as delicious as well. We're gonna pop that in a 375-degree oven uncovered for about 30 to 40 minutes, but not before we hit it with some of that shredded Gruyere cheese and some mozzarella, because we're here for a good time, not a long time. Might as well pile the cheese high. There it is, my friends, going into the oven till it's golden brown and beautiful like so. Say it with me, guys, looking good. Going down with some fresh chopped parsley for a pop of color. And now we're gonna go ahead and plate this up with our red sauce on one side and that white Mornay sauce on the other, because we're feeling extra fancy. I'm working on my plating here, guys, so hopefully you enjoy this. We're gonna hit it with some grated Parmesan cheese. Brace yourself for a trademark money shot. Say it with me, guys, looking good. There's that fresh chopped parsley for a pop of color. And a little extra truffle for some razzle dazzle. If you got your tax returns back, make sure you shave a little extra truffle on there. And I'm going in for the taste test. I cannot wait to dig in here. Moment of truth. Definitely a fork drop recipe. Let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure you give your boy a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button and the bell to enable notifications. And as always, thank you for your support.